Welcome to our lesson on the 5-number summary. In this video, we're going to break the topic into 3 parts. Part 1 covers the 5 key values used to describe a data set: the minimum, the median, the first quartile, the third quartile, and the maximum. Part 2 focuses on what we can do with those values: calculating the interquartile range, the overall range, identifying outliers, and finding the mode. And in Part 3, we'll use the 5-number summary to create a box plot, one of the most common ways to visualize data distribution. Let's begin with Part 1, the 5-number summary. This table shows the 5 values that make up the 5-number summary, along with a simple explanation of how each one is found. The first value is the minimum. The minimum is simply the smallest number in the entire data set. Next is the median. The median is the middle value when the data is ordered from least to greatest. It divides the data into 2 equal halves. The first quartile, or Q1, is the median of the lower half of the data. It represents the 25th percentile, meaning a quarter of the data falls at or below this value. The third quartile, Q3, is the median of the upper half of the data. It marks the 75th percentile, showing the point below which 3/4 of the data lie. And finally, the maximum is the largest value in the data set. Together, these 5 values describe the spread, center, and overall distribution of the data. Now let's find the 5-number summary for this text messaging data. We'll start by locating the median, then work outward for the quartiles, minimum, and maximum. As numbers are removed from each end, we land on the middle value. The median, Q2, is 20. On the lower half or the left side, we'll cross out numbers to find the middle of that section, which is 10. Therefore the first quartile is 10. Next, find the third quartile by finding the median of the upper half of the data, which will be 50. Then find the minimum, which will be 0 because it is the number with the least value in the data set. Lastly, find the maximum, which will be 100 because it is the number with the greatest value in the data set. Now let's look at 4 more terms we'll use when analyzing a 5-number summary. The first term is the interquartile range, or IQR. The interquartile range measures the spread of the middle 50% of the data. Next is the range. The range shows the distance between the minimum and the maximum values in the entire dataset. The third term is outliers. Outliers are values that fall far outside the typical pattern of the data, and they can strongly affect the mean and the spread. And finally, the mode. The mode is the value, or values, that occur most often in a dataset. These 4 ideas help us better understand how data behaves and how it's distributed. Now that we have the 5-number summary, we can use it to describe the spread of the data in more detail. We'll find the interquartile range, the overall range, check for outliers, and identify the mode. First, the interquartile range is found by subtracting Q1 from Q3. So 50 minus 10 gives an IQR of 40. Next, the range measures the full spread of the data from the smallest to the largest value. 100 minus 0 gives a range of 100. To check for outliers, we multiply the interquartile range by 1.5. 40 times 1.5 is 60. Then we add 60 to Q3, and subtract 60 from Q1. Anything above 110 or below -50 would be considered an outlier. Since none of our values fall outside that range, there are no outliers. Now let's look at how often each value appears. We can see that 10, 20, and 50 each show up more often in the dataset. However, 10 appears the most often, so the mode of the dataset is 10. These measures help us understand how the data is centered, how it spreads, and whether anything unusual appears in the set. Here are some examples of box plots. A box plot is a visual way to show how a set of data is spread out using the 5-number summary. The left whisker marks the minimum, the right whisker marks the maximum, and the box stretches from the first quartile to the third quartile. The line inside the box represents the median, showing the center of the data. Together, the whiskers and the box make it easy to see the range, the middle 50%, and how the values are distributed. Box plots are especially useful when comparing different data sets, because the structure stays the same no matter what the numbers are. Now let's look at how to create a box plot using a set of data. First, arrange the data from least to greatest along a number line. Next, identify the minimum, the maximum, the median, and the lower and upper halves of the data. Then find the lower quartile by locating the median of the lower half. Do the same for the upper half to find the upper quartile. Finally, place these 5 values on a number line and draw the boxes and whiskers to complete the box plot. Here is the box plot created from our text messaging data. A box plot is simply the 5-number summary placed on a number line and connected with boxes and whiskers. The minimum value is at 0, and the maximum value is at 100. The box stretches from Q1 at 10 to Q3 at 50, showing the middle 50% of all the data. The line inside the box marks the median, which we found to be 20. This helps us compare how the data is spread out above and below the median. Together, the minimum, Q1, median, Q3, and maximum give us a complete visual picture of the data's center and variability. To review, we used the 5-number summary to describe our data using the minimum, Q1, the median, Q3, and the maximum. From those values, we found the interquartile range, the overall range, checked for outliers, and identified the mode of the dataset. Finally, we used the 5-number summary to build a box plot, which gives us a clear picture of how the data is spread out. These tools work together to help us understand the center, spread, and shape of a distribution. That's the end of our lesson. Thanks for watching.